This is the Great Vocal Majority Podcast. Hey everybody, it's Tony Codispati with the Great Vocal Majority Podcast, and this is volume 53 that I am calling my love letter to the left. Look, I understand. You're all upset that Hillary Clinton lost, and now you all have symptoms of PTSD. Because you just didn't lose an election, you were humiliated. You lost to a man you laughed at as a joke. You dismissed him as unserious. You ridiculed him, his family, and his supporters. And even in some cases, his supporters were physically attacked by people on your side. And we later learned those attacks were organized and paid for and conducted by people who were tied to the Democratic Party. If you don't remember, it was the husband of Jan Schakowsky, who's a Democrat congresswoman from Chicago. Now, your side did everything it could to shame and even intimidate people out of supporting Donald Trump. Instead of driving his support away, though, you really only drove it from view. You made it unacceptable to express a favorable opinion of Donald Trump in public for fear of ridicule or even in some cases, as I've just said, physical assault. But Trump was elected anyway. Despite all the negative media coverage, the blanket dismissals, treating him and his supporters as a punchline, he still won. Trump's victory was so traumatizing to you. But why? Why were you so traumatized? Donald Trump became president on the same desire for change that elected Barack Obama. The only difference was that desire came from a different subset of an American electorate, most of whom didn't vote for Obama's hope and change in 2008. In fact, in 2008, Americans wanted change, and their choices were a status quo Republican, John McCain, and a newcomer named Barack Obama. The choice for the voter demanding change was kind of obvious. In 2016, the choice for the voter demanding change was just as obvious. Hillary Clinton lost because people had 8 years to digest the kind of change Obama wanted to make, and they didn't like it. Over his years in office, we all remember, Obama never missed an opportunity to remind Americans and others of our failings as a country. A very broad cross-section of Americans feel really blessed to live in America. Obama seemed to be expecting Americans to feel guilty instead of blessed. Now, after close to a decade of that, Americans, a lot of Americans, were low-hanging fruit for a leader who was a ferocious patriot, unapologetic in his love of country, and they got him. His name was Donald Trump. Clinton presented herself as the third term of Obama. She was the status quo candidate. And people were sick and tired of the DC status quo, and nobody represented a break from it better than Donald Trump. Now, certainly, there were other factors involved in Hillary Clinton's losing the election, but when you view this from, let's say, like 50,000 feet, Trump's win should not have come as such a surprise. So where are we now? Despite all the rancor, all the over-the-top media criticism, the fake news, and the efforts to undermine him, Trump has actually improved the country. It's hard to argue that things have not gotten better. But nevertheless, there is this daily barrage from the media that can only be described as anti-Trump propaganda. The elite news media was deeply embarrassed by the 2016 election outcome. For a good many of them, they spent much of their time and energy since working to delegitimize the Trump presidency. Now, this is destructive on several levels. First, it violates their own journalistic standards, moving into the arena of advocacy. Second, it's divisive and it alienates audiences. Third, it appears to be motivated by partisanship, maybe the desire to restore their own credibility by proving Trump's illegitimacy, or maybe both. The real problem is that Trump represents an existential threat to the corrupted established order in D.C. that really isn't interested in solving America's problems as much as they are interested in keeping and maintaining their stranglehold on power. This established order extends throughout the Beltway. It ranges from the members of the media in broadcast, cable, and print, to members of Congress, to the political consultant class, people working in the permanent government, that is, the federal bureaucracy. It extends to lobbyists, interest groups, and even foreign powers. President Trump is upsetting the established order, and by doing so, he is angering that order to the point where they are turning all their efforts against him. Now, one reason the political class sees Trump as a threat is the way he tries to solve problems by actually solving them. Let me give you a good example. It's DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Now, Democrats have used the plight of illegal aliens as an electoral issue for a long, long time. Trump, by proposing an actual resolution to the DACA issue, threatens to deprive the Democrats of that issue. Because once it's solved, there's no longer an argument to be made about why, we need to do this or that. It's done. So Trump actually called their bluff. They don't want to fix the problem. This is just one example, but there are many others where Trump is proposing actual solutions when the politicians need those issues to maintain their power. They will criticize the details of Trump's offer, but nobody can doubt accepting that offer would at least be a step in the right direction for all the interested parties. Instead, they reject that offer and they keep the political issue going ad infinitum. And that's actually what they want. Now, if you multiply this across every issue facing the country, that's what Trump is up against. The issue here is not whether Trump has the right answers to DACA or anything else, or even the best answers. The point is, he's making a real effort to actually solve the problems, and the resistance he's getting is coming from people who need the problems to remain unresolved. Now, if you could imagine this kind of resistance across every agency of government supported by the media and most of the pundits, lobbyists, and interest groups, you can see what any president would be up against if he had a sincere desire to root out corruption and solve problems in any real way. But as if that weren't enough, layer on top of all of this a special counsel whose investigative authority is open-ended and whose appointment was in violation of the law that authorizes him, because there's no existing statutory violation warranting his appointment. And staff that special counsel with vicious partisans, some of whom have histories of prosecutorial abuse, and you have a fuller picture of the forces arrayed against President Trump. Keep in mind, this president still enjoys close to a 50% approval rating. At least in one poll, Rasmussen, which was the most closest to the pin poll in 2016. one of two polls that were. Now, having found no collusion with Russia, the special counsel is hunting for any criminality. Now, that's third worldism, folks. It's a corrupt status quo looking to drive a duly elected president from office to save itself. A man who was elected that they were so certain had no chance of being elected, but just in case, they were busy devising insurance policies to unseat him. I want to offer a warning here to my liberal friends. This is how civil wars begin. You can't drive this guy out of office on some made-up thing and not expect there to be an explosion in this country. This is very dangerous stuff we're dealing with here. And we should really consider what we're really doing if we think we're going to drive this president out of office and swear in a President Pence and then try to drive him out of office. This is a very serious problem. This seems to be the wet dream of the left for that to happen. But that will not happen without probable violence, serious violence and unrest in this country. We just can't do something like that. In my opinion, if people don't like Donald Trump, the best way to get Donald Trump out of office is in 2020. If he runs again, don't vote for him. That's the way it works in America. What we don't do is assemble teams of vicious partisans to create crimes that may or may not have happened and then attempt to impeach him or indict him to get him out of office. That kind of thing isn't going to fly in the United States of America, even in 2018. That's it for me. I'm Tony Codispoti from the Great Vocal Majority. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel. Take care.